Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, and help me stay. I am tired, I am weak, and I am worn, through the storms, through the night. Lead me on to the light. Precious Lord, take my hand, be my friend. I am in a deep state of mourning. I am grieving. The rage that I once had has just become a small, smoldering fire on the brink of giving up. And I was thinking today, I have a whole other speech, but I was thinking today about why I'm grieving, or what am I grieving? Because grief signifies that you've lost something. Mourning indicates that you've lost something. And I was thinking I was grieving the lack of justice, but we've never known justice in this country. I thought I was mourning the lack of equality, but we've never had equality in this country. So what am I grieving and what am I mourning? And I realized that what I am mourning is the loss of our humanity. Because that we had, that validation that we were beautiful and enough for conception and to be placed on this earth, we had that when we were born. That innocence, that joy, we had that when we were born. Everyone rallying around us to make sure we made it safely into this world because our lives were valued. We knew that. We felt it. We had that when we were born. We entered into this world and people gathered around to come and see us, to look into our eyes, to hold us, to kiss us, to love us, to show us this world, picking up flowers and telling us this is one of the most beautiful things you will ever see. Giving us food and telling us this is one of the most wonderful things you will ever taste. Our innocence and our value was given to us by the Creator. And that is what I am mourning the loss of. Because something in my DNA, something remembers when my life had value. And when I see Daniel Prude laying naked on the ground with handcuffs on, and still he is told that he is a threat. When I hear the Attorney General tell us no one will be held accountable for his life, I know what I'm mourning. I'm mourning the loss of our humanity, of our value. And so I haven't been able to really protest. I haven't been able to really do much because the grief is so deeply seated in me. And I know, and I want to be clear to everyone, especially to Black folks, I want to be clear that we have been given value the moment we were born. But there is a consistent threat every day to take that away from us. And we feel that, and we know that, and something in our spirit knows that isn't right. I think about 12-year-old Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old child shot point blank in a park, and no one was held accountable for his life. No one rallied around him like they did when he was born. No one said there has to be something done. No one said we have to do something different. No one was held accountable for the loss of that life. And then when I think about Daniel Prude, I think of all the Black people who have been lynched at the hands of white men, and the government would cover up those crimes. I can't say that what we're experiencing now is not a cover-up by the government. And the reason I suggest that is because the government has created every statute and law possible to protect police when they kill innocent people. Whether it's qualified immunity, whether it's the grand jury process, whether it's the lack of a full investigation, whether it's these debunked theories such as excited delirium, the government is still attempting to cover up the truth that someone did this to Daniel Prude. Someone did this to Tamir Rice. Someone did this to Eric Garner. And those people need to be held accountable. So my spirit is in pain because it remembers deeply value and innocence. It remembers my humanity. It knows it's encoded in my DNA. And consistently, it is threatened. The speech that I'm supposed to give is my journey to justice. But it's an odd time to not talk about that. But why I'm here and how I got to this place is because I've been searching and longing and fighting to ensure that we remember the innocence, the purity, and the value of Black life. When my brother was taken away for 20 years, that was another threat to the value, another threat to humanity. That's someone I love so much. My brother who taught me how to ride a bike. My brother who, yes, he stole them, but he brought Pac-Man games. The big Pac-Man games that we could play in the basement, okay? So yes, there's some, someone lost that, but still, I loved my brother. And my brother wasn't someone who would hurt anyone. But my brother had a rage and a frustration with the way things were. My brother taught me everything I know about politics. He taught me everything I know about Black culture. But it made him angry. And so he wanted to go against the grain in everything that he did. So when I was 16, my brother committed a robbery for a small amount was taken, and he was sentenced to 20 years to life. And I just remember thinking that what has changed in this country? With the 13th Amendment, you can enslave someone again through the prison system. But I also knew that anything that was built could be destroyed. And this system was built this way. And it is incumbent upon us to destroy it. So I knew that I wanted to work in criminal justice reform. I knew that I wanted to have some voice to change the system. And I became a public defender. And I worked as a public defender for 5 years. And although I grew up in a community where I saw 3 out of 4 of my brothers beat up by the police, or they came home and I could see their bruises because they were assaulted by police. Because I grew up in a community where I saw people every day stopped by officers, searched, you would think I wouldn't be surprised by what I saw at the public defender's office. But what was different is I saw how every player in the criminal justice system upheld and supported this atrocity. See, when I was on Copeland Street where I grew up, it was just the cop that I saw doing this thing. Then I realized, so the cop writes this false charge or writes this minor charge, and he gives it to the district attorney. The district attorney doesn't stop him. The district attorney decides to prosecute. The judge doesn't stop her. The judge decides to sentence. And on and on and on. And I realized how many players were keeping this horrific, disgusting system afloat. And I'm telling you, the people that we are representing, the majority of people that we are representing are in there for nonviolent offenses. As we've said all summer, over 86% of the crimes that we see in Monroe County are misdemeanor crimes. Petty larcenies, property crimes, criminal mischiefs, things that happen every day in the suburbs, but they don't have the system of policing that we have in our communities. Jay-Z said that the police stalk the Black community, and that's a perfect word. They stalk the Black community, and they have stalked us from the day we set foot on soil where we were free. Because deeply embedded in them is the fear that the Negro might one day rise up. So we must watch them at every step. We must put 800 men armed into their community. That belief system is still the belief system that gives us the police that we currently have today. I was talking to the sheriff the other day, and I said to him, we were talking about stop and frisk, pretextual stops. Essentially, an officer can stop you for a minor violation, and even if it was race-related, as long as he can articulate, oh, well, you had a broken taillight. Oh, well, you know, you had an air freshener hanging from your rearview mirror. Then that officer can stop you. And so I made the suggestion in the Raise Commission that we end the use of pretextual stops. And I said to the sheriff, these need to end. And he said, well, you know, we get a lot of good things from those stops. We get guns, we get drugs, and, you know, so they're really important. And I said to him, Sheriff, you have a heroin epidemic in the suburbs, don't you? You have white kids dying at a high rate in the suburbs from heroin. Did you ever think to go to Greece, to go to Irondequoit and pull over white men and begin to search their vehicles? Did you ever think to do that? And he had no response. But I hope what he was able to see is that you believe that the ends justify the means for Black folks, but you wouldn't even dare do that same type of policing in your own community. There is no community that is policed like the Black community. I could not go to Brighton with an all-Black police force and do what RPD does in the city of Rochester. And here's an interesting fact for everyone who's like, well, what about the crimes, the high crime rates? There was a study done of 100 million motorists. They found that while Black men are twice as likely to be stopped, white men, when stopped and searched, are 1.5 times as likely, more likely to have drugs or guns in their possession. So we've completely debunked that myth. A study in New Jersey showed that out of all of the stops, only 10%, all of the Black men that they stopped, only 10% resulted in actual contraband. So what happens to that other 90%? Those other 90% of men are harassed repeatedly. And so then what happens to the relationships between the police and the Black community? Let me ask you this. We just saw today that the RPD put out a van to help deal with trauma. The van is community engagement, something or other. It's got a nice picture on it. Probably cost $50,000. They could have gave that to us for a tour bus, but anyway. And so I want you to think about it. An officer stops a young kid who's 16 for no bell on his bike. He searches that young kid. He goes into his pockets. He harasses him and embarrasses him. Or just like what Officer Ferrigno did, who's still on the force, took a 13-year-old kid behind an alleyway, yelled at him, berated him, continued to say, whose streets are these? Whose streets are these? And said he would beat the S out of him if he wasn't so young. Until that kid said, these are your streets. Now, let's say that 13-year-old or that 16-year-old kid, their mother has died. She was maybe the victim of the shooting or someone they know. And here comes Officer Ferrigno. Here comes the cop that just searched him. Here comes RPD as trauma care support. And I use that example because you can't, I won't say that. You can't dress up something that is ugly. Because once a person has had that experience, there is no trust anymore. So RPD can't try to sell us something else because you are in the business of terrorism. So 1% of the time, you can't come and play basketball because we still recall and remember that you are in the business of terrorizing our communities. So as Pastor Myra Brown always says, it's time for a new system of public safety. And if you're confused and you live in Pittsburgh, it's the system you have. That's what it looked like. Because guess what? Ain't nobody pulling over your son. I just found out that at a certain college campus, they're doing restorative justice for rape and sexual assault cases. Oh, we know how to do restorative justice with that. So the system that is currently in your communities, where officers are not responding, where you have services, supports, and you have finances to meet your needs, to send your child to therapy, to send your child to an expensive rehab center, right? That's what we're looking for in our community. We are looking to solve the social problems with opportunity, economic opportunity, access to resources, access to goods. Every Black social problem is met with the police, and that has to end. So there's no way we can continue down this path. And you know who we owe it to? We owe it to Denise Hawkins. Because in the 70s, Denise Hawkins was a Black woman who was being abused by her husband. She was running into the arms of a police officer, and she was killed. And you know what they did after Denise Hawkins laid in that dirt bleeding? They created a commission. They brought a group of folks together. Activists got together. Associated Press called. I don't know, maybe the New York Times called. And they got a round table together and said, how do we train them better? I wasn't even born then, okay? How do we train them better? And they came up with a list of 30 or more recommendations. And where are we now? There have been more people killed since Denise Hawkins. It hasn't just been Daniel Prude. But we can't let her die in vain. Or I should say, we let her die in vain, but we can't let Daniel Prude die in vain. We cannot let them keep feeding us the same meal and telling us it's something different. We've had it, we tasted it, and we know what this is. This ain't real change. This ain't real change. And for the Black community, I know some of us are afraid to say, abolish the police. Some of us are afraid to say, reimagine public safety. But I want you to have faith in your ingenuity and your creativity and know Think of all the people in your community who love you, who support you, who come to you, who give you food, who help you. When you need help, we can do better than calling Mike Mazzeo and his band of white supremacists. We have people in our community who can stand up and who can help us. I know we can do better than calling Ferrigno. I know we can do better than calling the men who will spray a 9-year-old girl with pepper spray. I know we can do better than that. I know the people in my community. I see people like Ashley, like Tanya, like the Rock Food Relief giving to people in our community. We are already doing it without the support. And they can't do it right with $100 million. You have to believe that another way is possible. I said this before. In this land, there was a man who believed that abolition was possible, and his name was Frederick Douglass. When people said, well, Frederick, how can we possibly do this? I mean, where are the slaves going to go? How could they? He dreamed up a world and knew it was possible. Not only that it was possible, but it had to happen. It absolutely had to happen. Harriet Tubman, I can't imagine, child. I would have left. I don't know if I would have left. Harriet Tubman said, I'm going to walk up there. I'm going to walk to freedom. There's got to be something better than this. There's got to be something better than this. I want you to look at that police department and I want you to say, I know there's something better than this. I know we can do better than this. And I don't care if people say, well, people don't like the word defunding. I don't care if they say they don't like the word abolition. All I can say is, I know we can do better than this. There's no way any community in the world would accept the type of policing, the type of overseeing that we have in our community. Can you imagine a 16-year-old white boy from Pittsburgh leaving La Crosse and being stopped for no bell on his bike? That happens in this city, and it happens almost exclusively to black and brown men. And that's something the mayor could stop today. She could end that today. The chief of police could end pretextual stops right now. The chief of police and the mayor could decriminalize and deprioritize disorderly conduct, harassment, trespass, low-level violations that are only charged and prosecuted in the city of Rochester, and you rarely see those in the suburbs. They could do that right now. Do they have the will? Do they have the courage? Because that's what it's going to take. Do you have the courage? When Harriet Tubman set foot and said, I'm going to make it, y'all, I couldn't walk from here to Henrietta, okay? But when Harriet Tubman said, I'm going to make it no matter what, that was courage. When Frederick Douglass talked about abolition, when he talked boldly and said, power seeds nothing without a demand. Every innovator, every creator. So to all of the black people, the people who invented the blues, the jazz, hip hop, funk, soul, and so much more, the most creative people on the planet, I know you can create a new system that does not kill your babies. I know we can do it. One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. Oh, glory. got to say that one more time. One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure